Adrian Cole had everything money could buy, yet there was one thing his billions had never given him: a reason to slow down. At 38, Adrian was the youngest self-made billionaire in the country, the owner of Cole International, a technology empire with offices in 12 cities, private jets waiting at his command, and a calendar filled with meetings that were scheduled down to the minute. People admired him for his discipline, but those who worked closely with him knew the truth. Adrian treated his life like a race against time. On a cold Monday morning, he arrived at the airport wearing an expensive charcoal suit, carrying a leather briefcase, and speaking rapidly to his assistant through his phone. He had an important flight to New York, where he was supposed to sign a $1 billion acquisition agreement that could make his company even more powerful. "Mr. Cole, boarding starts in 15 minutes, his assistant reminded him through the phone. "I know," Adrian replied impatiently. "Make sure the New York team has everything ready. If this deal gets delayed, I'll hold everyone responsible." He ended the call and walked toward the private lounge, barely noticing the hundreds of people around him. Then, just before entering the security area, he heard a small voice behind him. "Excuse me, sir, can you help me?" Adrian stopped. He turned around and saw a boy standing several feet away. The child looked about 8 years old. He wore an oversized blue jacket, worn-out sneakers, and carried a tiny backpack that looked almost as old as he did. His dark hair was messy, and his eyes were red as if he had been crying for a long time. Adrian glanced around. "Where are your parents?" he asked. The boy swallowed nervously. "I can't find my mom." Adrian checked his watch. "Where did you last see her?" "She was right there," the boy said, pointing toward the crowded terminal. "I only looked away for a few seconds." Adrian sighed. Somewhere in the airport, the boy's mother was probably searching frantically for him. Normally, Adrian would have called airport security and continued walking. His flight was already boarding soon, and missing it could cost his company millions. He reached for his phone to call airport security, but then he noticed the boy's hands trembling. "What's your name?" Adrian asked. "Noah." "Noah, do you know your mother's phone number?" The boy nodded and gave him a number, but when Adrian dialed it, there was no answer. He tried again. Nothing. "Do you know her name?" "Emily Carter." Adrian looked toward an airport employee and explained the situation. The employee immediately called security and made an announcement, but Adrian stayed beside Noah. "You can go," Noah said quietly. "You have somewhere important to be." Adrian looked at him in surprise. "How do you know? You look like someone who is always late." For the first time that morning, Adrian smiled. "Maybe I am." Noah looked down at his shoes. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For making you miss your plane." Adrian's smile disappeared. He looked at the departure screen. His flight had begun final boarding. His assistant was calling repeatedly. The $1 billion deal was waiting. He had every reason to leave. Yet something inside him refused. He sat beside Noah. "I'm not leaving you here alone." 20 minutes passed. Then 30. Adrian's phone rang again. "Sir, the gate is closing," his assistant said urgently. "I know. You need to get on that plane." Adrian looked at Noah. "I'm not coming." Silence filled the phone. "What?" "Reschedule the meeting." "But sir, that will cost." "I said reschedule it." Adrian ended the call. 10 minutes later, an airport security officer approached them. "Mr. Cole, we believe we may have located the boy's mother. She's at the other end of the terminal." Noah jumped to his feet. "Mom!" He ran as fast as he could. Adrian followed. Near Gate 19, a woman stood desperately asking airport employees for help. She was in her early 30s, wearing a simple beige coat, her face pale with fear and exhaustion. The moment she saw Noah, she dropped everything and ran toward him. Noah, she fell to her knees and wrapped both arms around her son. "Oh my God, Noah!" The boy cried into her shoulder. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." "No, baby, it's not your fault." She kissed his forehead repeatedly before finally looking up and seeing Adrian. "Were you with him?" she asked. "He found me," Adrian answered. "I just stayed until you arrived." Emily stood and approached him. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay you." Adrian shook his head. "You don't need to." She looked at his expensive watch and then at his suit. "You missed your flight because of him, didn't you?" Adrian hesitated. "Yes." Her expression changed. "I'm so sorry." "It's fine." "No, it isn't. You looked like you had somewhere important to be." Adrian gave a small smile. "Apparently, I did." Emily stared at him for a moment, as if trying to understand what he meant. Then Noah suddenly tugged Adrian's sleeve. "Can we see you again?" Adrian looked at him. "Why?" Noah smiled shyly. "Because you were nice to me." Something about those words stayed with Adrian. He took out a business card and handed it to Emily. "If you ever need anything, call me." She looked at the card, then at him. Her eyes widened when she read his name. Adrian Cole. Adrian nodded. "The Adrian Cole, unfortunately." Noah looked confused. "Is he famous?" Emily almost laughed through her tears. "Very." Adrian gave Noah a gentle pat on the shoulder. "Take care of your mother." Then he walked away. He expected that to be the end of the story. It wasn't. 3 days later, Adrian was sitting in his office when his receptionist announced that a woman named Emily Carter was waiting downstairs. He immediately remembered her. "Send her up." Emily entered carrying a small envelope. "I'm sorry to disturb you." "You're not disturbing me." She placed the envelope on his desk. "I came to return this." Adrian opened it and found his business card. "Why?" "Because I don't want Noah growing up believing that people owe him favors." Adrian looked at her carefully. "I never said he owed me anything." "I know," she replied. "That's why I'm here." Adrian leaned back. "Then why?" Emily took a breath. "Because I found something." She pulled out an old photograph from her bag and placed it on the desk. Adrian glanced at it and suddenly froze. The photograph showed a young woman standing beside a little boy. The boy looked about 6 years old. Adrian stared at the face. "Who is that?" he whispered. Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Your father." Adrian's entire body became still. His father, Daniel Cole, had died 12 years earlier. Adrian had always believed his father had been a cold businessman who cared more about money than family. "How do you know my father?" he asked. Emily sat down. "Because before he became wealthy, he helped my family." Adrian frowned. "What are you talking about?" 20 years ago, my mother owned a tiny bakery. Your father used to buy bread there every morning. One winter, our bakery was about to close. We owed money we couldn't pay. Your father quietly paid the debt, but he made my mother promise never to tell anyone." Adrian stared at the photograph. "Why are you showing me this?" Emily reached into her bag again and pulled out a letter. "Because before your father died, he asked me to keep this safe." Adrian opened it with shaking hands. The handwriting was unmistakably his father's. "Adrian, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. I know you think I spent my life chasing money, but I hope one day you understand that wealth means nothing if it never helps another person. There was a family I helped many years ago. I did it because someone once helped me when I had nothing. I never told you because I didn't want you to grow up thinking kindness was a transaction. If you ever meet Emily Carter or her family, don't give them money because you feel guilty. Give them respect because they deserve it. Adrian couldn't speak. He read the letter twice. Then a third time. Emily quietly said, "Your father saved my mother's bakery. Years later, when my mother passed away, she gave me this letter and told me to find you only if the right moment came." Adrian wiped his eyes. "Why now?" Emily smiled sadly. "Because I think your father knew you would eventually need to learn what he couldn't teach you himself." Adrian looked down at the photograph. For years, he had judged his father. Suddenly, he realized he had never known the whole man. "What happened to your bakery?" he asked. "It closed years ago. And you?" "I work as a school counselor." Adrian looked at her. "And Noah?" Her face softened. "He loves drawing. He wants to become an architect." Adrian smiled. "Then he should become one." Emily immediately shook her head. "Please don't offer money." Adrian nodded. "I won't." He paused. "But I would like to help him earn the opportunity." Emily studied him carefully. "How?" "I have a foundation that funds educational programs. I can create an architecture scholarship open to children from families who can't afford specialized education. Noah can apply like everyone else. If he's good enough, he'll earn it." Emily smiled. "Your father would have liked that." Those words struck Adrian harder than anything else. Over the next few months, something changed inside him. He still ran his company, still attended meetings, still wore expensive suits, but he stopped treating every minute as something that had to produce money. He visited schools supported by his foundation. He spent time with children. He began listening to employees instead of simply giving orders. And every few weeks, Noah visited his office. The boy would sit at the giant conference table drawing buildings while Adrian worked. One afternoon, Noah handed him a drawing. "This is for you." Adrian looked at it. It showed a giant building with a small man standing outside it, holding the hand of a little boy. At the top, Noah had written, "A man who stopped." Adrian smiled. "What's this?" "The day you missed your plane." Adrian stared at the drawing for a long moment. "That was the best flight I ever missed." Noah grinned. Years passed. Noah grew into a brilliant young architect, and Emily became the director of one of the foundation's education programs. Adrian's company continued to grow, but his greatest pride was no longer measured in billions. It was measured in the number of lives his foundation changed. One evening, Adrian stood outside the headquarters of Coal International as rain fell softly around him. Noah, now 18, stood beside him holding a university acceptance letter. "I got in," Noah said. Adrian looked at the letter and smiled. "I knew you would." Noah hugged him. "Thank you." Adrian shook his head. "Don't thank me. Your mother taught me something." "What?" Adrian looked toward the city lights. "That sometimes the most important destination isn't the one on your boarding pass." Noah smiled. "Then missing your flight was a good thing." Adrian laughed softly. "The best mistake I ever made." Inside his office, framed on the wall, was the drawing Noah had given him years earlier. Beside it hung his father's old photograph and the letter that had changed everything. Adrian had finally understood what his father had tried to teach him. Wealth could build towers, buy companies, and fill bank accounts, but kindness could build something money never could, a legacy in another person's heart. And all of it had begun with a lost little boy at an airport, a missed flight, and one simple decision to stop walking.